Hello, everyone from the saddest place in the universe, game industry. But it's not really a sad day. It's some more of a happier one. And you know why I say it's a happier one? Because EventStatus has put out one of the most important YouTube videos out there in the history of the platform. It is one of the most important. If this does not go into some sort of historical documentation about what was good about this internet and what is bad about this internet, and is not placed on the good, people's heads need to be examined. I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, but I 97% co-sign whatever he has said and the evidence that he has put out, and that he has been fighting the way we need to be fighting against those that have gone after children. But the problem comes from a very simple premise. We don't give a damn about the next generation. And it has become apparent, and now they're lashing out all over, especially in Portland and Seattle as of right now. And in other places the day is a little bit more peaceful, but you get what I'm trying to say. There was a issue that Joe Budden was talking about that Geely later responded to, and responded to wisely, about ownership. And the fact of the matter is that EventStatus and Wallow and Geely understand where things need to go towards. Understand completely. And how politicians and wannabe politicians want to move everything forward and want to move everything towards. It doesn't matter if it's Shoe on Head and her husband. It doesn't matter if it's all the others that have come out of this cyber culture war, this PSYOP, which has been planned from the U.S. Army from the get-go. And the PSYOP is still continuing, and you don't see it through your faces. You didn't see it, now you know. He just gave you the evidence. And don't see that we just want to play video games isn't enough. We have a much bigger problem. And the biggest problem that we have, one of the biggest problems that we have, especially as men, what we saw with EventStatus is he was decked to the nines. The drip, my brother. Yes, sir. The drip. Praise that drip, bro. Praise that drip. Coming out serious, ready to take down the detractors that he has been facing off for so long, and showing the evidence of what he has been facing, especially with the Army. They shouldn't be doing the things they be doing in this particular instance with these young children. And what is going on in China, especially with Hong Kong. He played no favorites. It was a wonderful takedown of what we are going through in this society right now as normal people who are trying to enjoy a hobby. Which is absolutely sad to see how it has been commandeered by supposed people who give a damn about those in other ethnic groups. They don't give a damn. And he explained it towards the end of this particular missive that he had, one of the best missives I've ever seen. Y'all need to ask yourselves these questions. Who put PewDiePie? Who put all these other people? Who put Angry Joe? Who put everyone else on top of those the things in the FGC and in all of gaming? Because it realizes, and you have begun to realize, that they're all jokes. One of the reasons I changed the focus of the PlayStation Zeitgeist, as you now know as Zeitgeist, is because of the things that were happening in Sony. They were going to do a sequel I never wanted to touch. I said it 7 years ago. I kept saying it for so many years. I kept saying everything into that particular point, and nobody listened to my concerns, because I did not have the platform to say my concerns. We just said, okay, let's do the DLC. No, if you can't make one game, that's fine. Then you have problems. You have problems. This is the way entities and people get used in a way of seeing the world that only exists through the lens of social politics, that ultimately destroys relationships between oneself, between one's family, between all those other things that make human beings human. And it's hard, and it's real difficult to look at and to see. So one of the reasons why I changed the name of the PlayStation Zeitgeist into Zeitgeist, is because we fans in the video game industry are poor in spirit, and we are living with poor spirits. Because in one aspect of it, a lot of with a lot of the things with the sexual harassment and all the rest of these things, in particular, is that harassment was going to come because a lot of women started to come into this industry, and a lot of men didn't know how to behave around them, because they were told from a young age that women emotions have to have more say than a man's emotions, or a man's logic, or a man's reasoning, or all these other things and whatnot. That's not to say that men cannot be emotional and all these other things, but there are right times to be emotional and there are wrong times to not be emotional. But a lot of these incidences come from a lot of these men, and a lot of these women come from broken homes. They need to feel like they're of some part of the community, and they bring all their toxicity into the FGC and into gaming. And then people exploit that toxicity to promote a politics that is ultimately destructive, not only to those that are doing the toxicity based on the weakness of the family structure that they all came from. And a lot of people can get over the toxicity and be good people. We see that with Event in particular and others. But a lot of them don't get over it. And they use that toxicity to exploit whatever type of politics they want to promote, whether it's right wing or right now, majority left wing. And all the things that are happening now. But the biggest sickness I have witnessed, especially with the I don't want to make a long pause about it. With Cine and Puppy, the sickness that I saw, and when it's being used, it trickles down to me and others in personal and private lives. Personally, privately, and all the other places that men need to succeed. Is this horrendous joke that none of these people accused of these crimes are going to have their day in court? When will they have it? How long will it take? That's the question you need to ask yourselves. When are they going to have their day in court so we can hash this shit out? You now realize who has been with you all this time. But he has to tell the truth, and the truth is not easy to swallow. But do you know why the truth is not easy to swallow? It's because you've been played by these agents of policy and politics. They want nothing more than to control you because they have no way of handling themselves. One of the things that people have to realize about what you see is that it also kills people and leads people to suicide, to take their own lives. I don't want to mention the incident or the person who died, but the way the media manipulated the events that led to her death, to this person's death, is that and the way they use the other victim, who was a male, and through the prism of two countries he is seen in different ways, is absolutely sickening. And it is a real sad reality that a lot of people are not going to get over a lot of this and never really understand what they had truly been manipulated to do on the internet. I want you to know that a lot of the things that we see concerning the FGC in the overprotection of people do not understand the type of manipulation that leads into someone's passing. And it hurts so bad. A lot of people cannot get over what has happened, and they try to change things. And it's difficult to change on either side because now we live in a world where respect is seen in the way that is not seen before or has not been experienced before. And a jealousy has brought its paw throughout all the gaming world and the world of human relationships that gives such predators such as Cine and others carte blanche to do whatever they did to young men like the victim there in a Smash tournament or dealing with these Smash tournaments. An event, excuse me, event gave some solutions to solve these problems, and I agree with 97% of them. I agree with 97% of them. But again, I say that we have to be a little bit more careful how we deal with the federal government, especially when it comes to these grants. And we have to be careful with the way sexual harassment should be seen, because we know what sexual harassment is. When we see it, we know it. It should be easy to spot. But the unfortunate thing is, the people that say they know better than us, they know better than people that have experienced harassment and all these other things do, they change the goalpost. So we have to be careful on that. And when it comes to the grants, we have to be careful with the government in the way we weigh the government's money. If the government gives us money, how we're going to spend it. And we should be careful if we even should be allowed to take the government's money, even after all the things that have happened concerning the U.S. military and trying to recruit teenage boys and teenage girls into the military before the age of 18. But a lot of other things, he's right on. I just want to add one other thing. I just want to add two other things to make the FGC better. We're going to have to change the way the FGC handles its event model when it comes to controllers and all the rest of it. I agree they should bring their own controllers. There needs to be an arcade setup, and they need to be standing up unless they have some difficulty of standing up throughout the set. It should be more closely related to the arcades of the past than it is right now in the future. That means they have to develop a technology where you have a setup where anybody can use their own controllers, but the main people who do the tournaments have their own controller. If no one wants to use their one, that means they can use pads. That means they did, but they have to be standing up. The place has to be standing up, so they will allow the jaw back. They will allow the jaw back and all the rest of it, but security will be available and will be able to act a little bit more faster on certain things. And when they're able to shake hands, they can see everybody to shake hands and whatnot, and they can have the podium and say thank you and all the rest of these things. But there needs to be a space, especially during with this whole COVID thing and whatnot. There needs to be a space to have an arcade standing. They need to be standing up, unless they have some condition where they need to sit down and all the rest of these things. We cannot forget that the video game industry started off when we were young, and it is time long since time for Nintendo to bring their World Championship Series back. If it is for the FGC and it is for Smash, and they must have an age limit from 6 to 17, and it will be mostly Smash or other video games that fit the Smash's standard. If they can do that, I think they can bring a lot of people into the game. I do not believe that anybody. I think there has to be a space for children in the FGC, but I think Nintendo could provide that particular space in that particular sense with Smash. And if Smash wants to be a part of the FGC for the older crowd, they can be, but it has to be for the older crowd, that sort of thing. I think there can be a space for those particular days, but it is going to have to be an acceptance of the fact that we can no longer put these young men and these young women into these particular adult spaces where there's 18 and 21-year-olds around alcohol and all the rest of these things. That has to end. That has to end today. And I absolutely agree with Bond on that. I'm asking, excuse me, not Bond. I'm talking about Black Bond. I don't know what happened to him anyway, but EventStatus, I absolutely agree with him on that. And it should be implemented as soon as possible. Everything else, I agree with. I am a little bit skeptical about taking funds from the thing, from the government, about fees and all the rest of it. I feel as though is that it's a little bit off-putting to me, because some of the reasons why we had this particular Gamergate issue in the past was because the anti-Gamergate side wanted the government to fund video games as a form of art. And you have to be really careful and really conscious on the fact that once you take the government's money, the government will want certain things to happen. And this is the same government, both Democrat and Republican, have been trying to figure out ways to get a hand on video games and censor it from the violence and what they're trying to do with the sexuality, what they almost did if Clinton won the election, because we know her and Tipper Gore were a part of the reason everything changed with the video game industry and the television industry, those two in particular, and then the effects, and then what they did with student loans, which were all disqualifying factors in her losing the election back then. But that is for another day and another time. But 97% of it should be done. 97% about it should be done. We have to thank EventStatus for doing all the hard work he has done, not just in the gaming sphere, but outside of the gaming sphere. I just want y'all to know that I tip my cap off to him if I had an actual cap. This is one of the most important videos YouTube has ever been seen on YouTube. More important than any of the other videos that YouTube has ever put out, especially in the gaming world. Everybody needs to see this, because if we don't just do anything, I'm gonna let y'all guys know. The virus that has been seen in the FGC, it ultimately took the life of Etika, remind you, and it made fools out of people trying to tell the truth. EventStatus has told you about this virus. This virus is spreading. It is going to combine with other viruses that we've all been fighting against. And it is going to pervade not only the video game industry, but the rest of the entertainment industry. Because on the basic fundamental level, we have a problem with the way human beings relate to each other at this particular moment, partly because of what happened with the pandemic, partly of what's going on with the protests that are going on in the rest of the country, partly because we don't trust authority anymore, right wing or left wing, and we don't know where to go for the answers. And we don't know where to go for the truth. Well, EventStatus have told you the truth. We're supposed to be rich in spirit, but one of the reasons that I want people to understand how we develop character above all else. I said it earlier. 7 years ago, I said I was never going to buy any sequel for The Last of Us 2. I don't care how much money it made. I don't care how much people liked it or didn't like it. But it takes a special man of character to say one game is enough. It also takes a special man of character to say no more to Sony first-party games until they treat everyone with respect. What people really don't understand is that racism is not just black-white. And racism isn't just light-skinned blacks versus dark-skinned African Americans or dark-skinned blacks. It is also pit against successful countries such as South Korea and Japan, and sometimes China, against each other. In entertainment, politics, and the whole 9 yards. Because what people are starting to get to realize is that Korea has been given favorite status. You understand me? This has nothing to do with, did they do bad things or whatnot? One of the people brought the COVID to the country and started spreading all over Asia and all the rest of it, all over there, and a lot of people died in the early parts of it. No, this has nothing to do with that. It is the way certain people who are connected to these journalists and all the rest, these gaming journalists and all the rest of it, call it cosmopolitans or whatnot, how they use different cultures against each other. So they pin K-pop fans against anime fans. They say that Halu is better than Akibara. They say this, that is the other thing. But they don't understand that people can choose what they like and what they don't like. It is not a war. Other people make it a war, but don't kid yourself. One has more talent, expertise, and knowledge than the other. That does not dismiss the other. That's just the way it is. And people need to understand that. And because people refuse to see and over-promote one over the other, they then hurt other industries connected to this and make sure that their favorite, let's say Asian, right now is Korea, gets more precedence than, say, Japan or another Asian country. Let's just be real here. It's the same tactic they use against black and white, because now they're saying in certain circles that Japanese is a form of white, which is not true, and gives credits to the theory that they are using South Korea as favored nation status. And it's the same tactic they use light-skinned blacks, dark-skinned blacks. Same tactic. I just want you to understand the racism, and the same tactics of racism are being shown right in front of your faces, and you don't see it. And once you begin to see, you begin to realize what EventStatus talks about racism and all these other things rings true. But the way it is being used right now is to push other people ahead from those that they are supposed to help, which he ultimately said towards the end of his missive. We are all we got. I absolutely 110% agree with it. 1,010%. 1,000% agree with it. We are all we have. We have all we got. We have nobody else, because everybody, unfortunately, because of the way they were raised by beta males. They were raised by males. They don't understand a goddamn thing of how to talk to people, how to have something higher than themselves, something better than themselves, bigger than themselves. They don't realize that a lot of things have changed in society that have made themselves look weaker. Now, a lot of people like Michael Tracy may have some laughs over video games and whatnot, and I understand that he had laughs about it. Y'all take it too seriously. Fine, we do take it seriously in certain ways. But there is money involved, a lot of money involved, and you don't leave money on the table like the FGC did, the fighting game community did throughout all of this pandemic. They left money on the table they will never get back. Never. Do you know who got sponsored by ESPN throughout the whole pandemic? Do you know who got sponsored? Marble Racing. Getting 1.2 million views. But we have a whole history of FGC that they could produce in the similar way that they used to produce pro wrestling without the whole pro wrestling, humongous pro wrestling antics that y'all dropped, that a lot of the viewers tried to put out. They could have done it in that particular way as a sport, and they didn't get a chance to do it. And you were on that ESPN, and you were ready to get on that ESPN until the truth came out about their perversion, especially in Evo and all the rest of it. Event Hubs and Shuriken has not done anybody any favors. Exactly. And here's another shocking thing. Nothing about Gundam. Nothing about Gundam, and especially Gundam being one of the most successful arcade games in Japan for over 10 years straight. For 10 years straight. None of you are willing to, especially with the movie coming out, none of you are willing to get on this and realize you're leaving money on the table? Absolutely asinine to me. Especially coming from Mandai, knowing that a movie is coming out in 2021, 2022, whenever everybody can get back into the movie theaters, and you know you have all these games of Gundam coming out, all these games of Gundam that have been there for decades. ready to be pushed out and be seen again from an American populace that have already lost hope in Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, in the in the UK speaking circles, and a whole lot of others have lost faith. Gundam might be the big one, and it's coming, and it's the new era of science fiction, and they know it. So why are they playing games? Get this thing off the ground. I know EventStatus wants it off the ground too. 18 months ahead. Let's go. What you doing, Bandai? It is so important that everyone needs to watch this video, whether you are of many different political forms, and realize the things that have happened and why this thing is why they hid and protected these evildoers in our midst. Y'all need to get these things together. Y'all really need to. Y'all need to take a page from Fire Pro Wrestling and learn from that community. I have played the game since Fire Pro Wrestling D on the Dreamcast, even bought a Dreamcast from that game. Actually, my first game was Fire Pro Wrestling 2. Then it led into, I went deep into it and I said Fire Pro Wrestling D, then R, then it came into the States. I modified my PlayStation 2 for it. Then it came into the States through the Aztec thing. And then a long delay. And then it came back. And for 2.5 years, I aired 150 videos, streams of matches of Fire Pro. Some of my created characters, some of them not created characters. I even expanded into a Thursday night one. I haven't done one since the pandemic started, and I'm not going to start one until there are more crowds in the other side, because I have more respect for this business than a lot of other people have for this business. I have more respect and more honesty about the wrestling business, video game or otherwise, than a lot of people do. And it's become a sad indictment that somebody says that I am willing to risk losing a lot of people that I don't even that much have, and let people just watch through the old things, because I have more respect for myself and others that we're going through at such a time in this pandemic, and nobody gets it. And it's time to let it breathe until there is such a time people can come back and we can actually have entertainment again the way it's meant to be done. People are afraid of just doing the right thing, and it's a shame. A lot of people in this particular psyop of Gamergate have been exposed, especially Shoe-On-Head and others, as I said earlier. But EventStatus has stayed true. And I hope he does more videos. If he doesn't, it's fine. This is the perfect segue into something better, not only for the fighting game world and the fighting game community, but for all of gaming. We cannot stand here and take the sameness of the way Sony does its games. Even though the Ghost of Tsushima, I will not play it, but a lot of people said it is good. There are not a lot of kid games out there for children. Sonic Team is changing that for Square Enix. There needs to be a female division and a male division for the video game, for the fighting game world, fighting game industry, and for esports ultimately. If we're going to do esports the way they want to do esports, I don't believe in esports at all. I don't believe in it. But if they're going to do it, it's a female and a male division and age groups. And their parents need to have permission before they're even allowed to go out there. So there is some sort of paper trail to make sure responsibility is not left at the door. Y'all need to listen to it, because it's the only way to make game industry pretty again. Thank you for listening. We'll see you when we'll see you. Take care of yourselves and be safe.